That's decay of the Aboriginal design, and it's exactly what you would expect on a biblical theology of nature, that you would expect to see evidence of the original design, but then evidence of decay. And I want to talk first about, let's just frame the question around natural evil, okay? Because this is what bothers people. If we got all this wonderful evidence of design in life, then what about the stuff that's not so nice? Okay?
Right.
What about things that look designed, but also are harmful to humans? And the the biggest class of such virulent organisms are bacteria. And we've had, for example, the plague, Yersinia pestis, the system that Scott worked on, killed hundreds of millions of people in the Middle Ages. And we've had outbreaks of it throughout human history. So what's going on with this phenomenon of virulent bacteria? So if everything was designed, why are there things that are bad design? And that's probably the most difficult question for proponents of intelligent design, but it's especially difficult if you hold to just sort of a secular ID perspective. There's a designer out there, we don't know who it is. We see evidence of design in nature, but what do we make of this stuff that looks badly designed, or looks maybe even good design, but it looks like it's very harmful? Both Scott and I are not just ID proponents, we're also biblical Christians. And so we have explanatory resources that maybe a generic ID hypothesis would not be able to access. Because if you look at Scripture, you see you would expect to see two things in nature. You would expect to see evidence of aboriginal design, good design at the foundation of life and in the universe, but you would also expect to see evidence of decay. In the book of Romans, it tells us that from the things that are made, the unseen qualities of the Creator are clearly manifest, Romans 1:20. But then when you get to Romans 8, it says that the creation itself is groaning for its redemption, and it actually says that the creation is in bondage to decay. And so if you accept the ID hypothesis, but within the framework of a sort of Judeo-Christian worldview where you're taking the scriptural ideas about the fall, something having gone wrong that has even affected nature, then you expect to see not one thing, not just good design, but evidence of decay of that design as well. And this is where conversations with Scott, for me, have been so illuminating, because it turns out that in his field of bacteriology, and that virulence, the acquisition of sort of a toxic function of bacteria vis-a-vis human beings, is invariably the result of mutation. It's the result of either the transfer of genetic information out of its original context into another organism where it's expressed out of context, processes that are things like lateral gene transfer and so forth, or else it's the result of the loss of genetic information. And the fascinating, I heard Scott give this talk when we were lecturing in Brazil several years ago on the natural history of the plague. And the plague evolved from a very harmless bacterium that for which we have a natural immune response. That flagellar motor we were talking about, our immune system is all over that. It's got lots of bacteria. We have lots of bacteria in our gut that we need, and we have an immune response to the presence of the flagellar motor in those. In those bacteria, but when you through a series of mutations, that harmless aboriginal bacterial strain, and we can actually track the mutations. Scott should tell more about this, but you can track them through human history, as you find these bugs in the pulp of teeth and things like that. And by the time you get to the Middle Ages, there have been 4 identifiable mutations that have degraded that original system, and that flagellar motor is now, the whole system is gone. All that's left is this secretion device that's at the core of the motor that's around which it's seated, and now it's secreting nasty stuff for which we had no immune response, and you get a nasty bug. Well, what is that? That's decay. That's decay of the Aboriginal design, and it's exactly what you would expect on a biblical theology of nature, that you would expect to see evidence of the original design, but then evidence of decay. And then the irony is that the process that neo-Darwinians or the evolutionary theorists, the process that they to which they attribute creativity, namely mutation, which is the engine of creativity and innovation in the mutation selection process, or at least allegedly so. The process to which they attribute creativity is actually the process that produces decay and then what we call natural evil. So we can clearly see that in the case of bacteria, the nasty things it does to humans was not part of the original design, which is very consonant with a Judeo-Christian view of the natural world and a Judeo-Christian understanding of how ID functions or where it functions. It functions at the beginning, but then there's decay subsequent to that.